Guys, black people do not have low porosity hair. Knowing your hair's porosity is an absolute key to getting your hair to grow. It's what determines what techniques you can use, what techniques work for your hair growth, and other products that might be more beneficial to you that wouldn't be for someone else with a different hair porosity. One of the main reasons how I got my hair to go from this in July 2023 to this in December 2023, just 5 months later, was by understanding that I had high porosity hair and learning how to deal with the consequences of that. So if you still think you have low porosity hair, continue watching. If you think that the float test is what's going to help to determine your hair's porosity, keep watching. And if you think that products sit on the surface of your hair because you're low porosity, keep on watching. Hey guys, it is Natural Nadine here, and I'm back with another video on porosity. So without me rambling on, guys, let's get into the video. I just want to give a disclaimer, guys, that when I'm talking about porosity, I am extremely passionate about it because I just feel like black people have been so misinformed about the entire thing. I also feel like people are profiting off of our misinformation. So if I come across very passionate in this video, I'm not angry. I remember I made a video before a year ago about why black people don't have low porosity hair. That one's just a bit more generic than what we're going to talk in this video. A lot of people thought I was angry. I'm not angry, guys. I'm just passionate, and I really just thought, am I an angry black woman? First thing we're going to be discussing is the hair porosity test. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the hair porosity test, it is basically when you put a clean strand of water into a bowl or a cup, a bulk of water, and the general consensus of this hair porosity test is that if your hair floats, it's low porosity, if it sinks, it's high porosity, and if it floats somewhere in the middle, it's normal porosity. I don't even know where this test came from. I myself have done it in the past, so guys, no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone. When I sat down and I really deeped it, I thought, actually, no, Nadine, I might give a disclaimer that I am a chemical engineer, and that's nothing to do with this video, but it kind of like knocked sense into me. I was like, Nadine, you're a literal scientist. I want you guys to cast your minds back to when you were like 11. You were in science class and you were learning, why do things float or sink? What did our teachers tell us? Guys, something floating in water or sinking in water has absolutely nothing to do with its porosity and everything to do with its density, okay? Like, I literally thought, Nadine, 10-year-old science, what is wrong with me? Anyways, guys, whatever, it is what it is. It's a popular hair test, and I still see people promoting it now, and every time I see somebody talking about doing the hair porosity test, honestly, I just roll my eyes because I literally think porosity has nothing to do with anything floating in water, okay? Density and buoyancy, as we learned in the 6th grade. And to further prove my point, if the science is just like not enough, let's take a sponge as a really good example, okay? Sponges are highly porous materials. They have lots of really holes, hence they are porous, and they are very good at absorbing water. They're also very good at drying quickly. And in this example, the sponge is going to be representing our hair. But if I put a sponge in water, guess what? It floats. Not because it's not highly porous, not because it's not absorbed the water, because you can see that the sponge has actually absorbed the water. As soon as I'm squeezing the sponge, water's coming out. So it's absorbed the water just fine. The reason why a sponge floats in water is not because it's not good at absorbing water or retaining water. It's because it is less dense than the water that it has been placed in. So when you're doing the hair porosity test, what that's more likely is to tell you is if your hair is more or less dense than the water you have placed it in, if that makes sense. Your hair might float, but that doesn't mean it's low porosity. It might just mean that your hair is low density in comparison to the water that you have put it in. Because, guys, as we're going to recap, the only thing that determines whether something sinks or floats in water is its density. Now that we've spoken about the hair porosity test, guys, just forget about the hair porosity test and how it determines whether or not low, high, normal porosity. Instead, for me, what I think is the absolute best way to determine how porous your hair is, it's not a quick fix, it's not a quick answer, but it's to honestly see how your hair reacts to dryness, okay? See how long after a wash day does it take for your hair to get dry again. Because if you've got to moisturize the next day, then that's very highly porous hair. Where if you can go a week without moisturizing, you might be a little bit less porous, but that's still quite high porosity. Someone with low porosity will typically not need to rehydrate their hair in between wash days because of the fact that their hair is very good at locking in that moisture. Moving on to my next point, guys, to also emphasize the fact that black people do not have low porosity hair, we're going to cast our eyes to this research paper, and it is called Ethnic Hair, Thermoanalytical and Spectroscopic Differences. This research paper analyzed a few different characteristics of different hairs. I will have it linked down below. Here's one thing that I also want to mention, and when I mentioned this previously about black people, what if I'm like 2% Caucasian, because you know, because people are just so diverse nowadays and people are mixing and mingling and everything. And guys, I need us to get behind, I need us to understand that even though the human race is so diverse and genotypes are so diverse, they're not actually as complex as we think they are. I mean, you can, I'm not going to go into it, but you can literally Google how many races there are. There's literally only like 5. They like, you will fall into one of these 5 categories. And in today, I'm talking about specifically about black people of African descent. If you have a black mom and a black dad, this applies to you. I don't want someone coming up in here and talking about, well, I'm mixed with European and I'm quarter Chinese and I'm this and I'm that, because I'm not talking to you. Circling back to this research paper, guys, and it said in the research paper, differences in the diffusion coefficients were evident. African hair exhibited increased permeability. If you guys don't know what a diffusion coefficient is, okay, before I explain it, if you guys know what a diffusion coefficient is, comment down below, because I want to know who is a nerd just like me. But anyway, diffusion coefficient, sometimes known as the diffusivity. If it has a lower diffusion coefficient, that means water passes through it a lot slower. If it has a higher diffusion coefficient, that means that water passes through it a lot quicker. And then when it says the African hair exhibited increased permeability, I don't feel like I need to explain this, but just in case, permeability is the ability of something to penetrate something, you know, to get inside. Then goes on to say Caucasian hairs presented lower diffusion coefficients and the African hair fibers had the highest diffusion coefficients. Therefore, it could be concluded that the African fibers possess high permeability compared with Asian and Caucasian. So this is what I mean when I say black people don't have low porosity hair. It's just not something that is us. When I say they don't have low porosity hair, I mean low porosity is literally something reserved for Asian and Caucasian hair types. It literally doesn't apply to us. And when the beauty industry brought out this whole porosity thing, they weren't even talking to us. They were referring to amongst themselves, and I feel like we kind of jumped on the bandwagon and we were like, oh, okay, so this is going to explain certain different things with regards to our hair. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't compare my hair to Asians and Caucasians, and the reason why I think we absolutely should, they have got so much research and development done into their hair care, okay? The amount of research papers there is on Asian and Caucasian hair that completely skips out ethnic hair in general is crazy. The reason why I think it's good to directly compare is because you can see what they do to their hair, why they do it, because they're low porosity. And then what I'm gonna do is the opposite. Here's one thing I also want to mention. Having high porosity hair does not mean it's damaged, does not mean it's necessarily weaker, does not mean it's actually, it doesn't even mean it's a negative thing. It just means that our hair doesn't absorb and retain moisture better. And I'm sure that in some way that has its advantages in different places. Our hair is highly porous. For what reason? I don't know. Is it a bad thing? No. Now, this is the other thing as well, guys. There is spectrums within the porosity, okay? So as a group, we have high porosity hair, right? But sometimes some people's hair will be lower, some people's hair will be higher, some people's hair will be slightly in between the lower and the higher spectrum, but it's overall we have high porosity hair. And this is one of the reasons why as black people we have to consistently be re-moisturizing. We have to use thick butters, creams, moisture to lock in hydration, because our hair is not that great at retaining it by itself. Okay guys, so I'm gonna wrap this part 1 up. In part 2 and my next video, we're gonna be talking more about the actual structure of our hair, the cuticle layers, the number of cuticles, and how you can alter your hair routine to kind of offset things that happen with high porosity hair. That's it for today's video, guys. I will see you in part 2. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.